We are a grassroots 501c3 nonprofit. There are 7 board members, including myself. We also have Mandy Davis, Nicole Dorfman, and Sherry Baker. There's 3 others as well. There is Sarah Rizzo, who is also a member of Avila. We have Betty Winholtz, and we also have Andrea Booker. We are a very diverse group of local citizens. We are very different from each other. We have a bunch of different political affiliations, I would say. Discussing politics on our board of directors would probably be labeled as an extreme sport. It's just something to know, because I think that we often get a question, right, well, what would the other solution be? Because we all came together to be united for one cause, and that one cause is to stop the offshore wind project, which is AB 525. Our mission is to protect our coasts from offshore wind. We are here to educate the public. We are here to advocate for informed decision making. We are here to mobilize the community. We are here to potentially pursue legal action if necessary. And we are also here to work with governing agencies and collaborate with them. So that is our focus. Same thing goes, right? If we were to talk about solutions other than this project, it would also probably be an extreme sport. So just something to be aware of there, because we get that question once in a while. We do personally recognize outside of RAC Alliance that there are an array of other solutions available, but again, that's personal and separate from RAC Alliance. We have had some sound bites recently, which have been pretty entertaining, from some outlets, which are of course not true. I think my favorite one so far has been that we're funded by Big Oil. That's hilarious, because if anyone knows what they're talking about, they'll realize that Big Oil is wind. So you'll see as you go through our presentation that they are very intertwined, and yeah, it's a funny thing to say. Same thing with whether we're being, radically right as far as politics go, or potentially we are spreading myths. So we really like to be very transparent. We are very upfront. We hold ourselves accountable. So if anyone wants to play Mythbusters, we are down for that. we really like open and honest communication. We'll be doing a Q&A at the end here. So if you guys have questions, we'll be more than happy to answer those for you. So let's go ahead and dive in.
Hey, you guys. You know what, can you hear me? Yeah. And I work as a guy, I work outside, I'm really used to projecting. So if you can't hear me, let me know and I'll dial it up a notch. So we are presenting this PowerPoint, Central Coast Offshore Wind, Impacts and Consequences. And we will be dividing this presentation into 3 different sections. We'll be talking, and those sections each have their own set of impacts and consequences for those impacts. So hopefully this will help you to understand the project and the process and what it is that we have to be concerned about. Next. So very simply, just as an introduction, there is a offshore wind lease area that's 376 square miles, about 20 miles west of Cambria, San Simeon. That is the lease that was finalized in December of, I believe it was 2022. And it is, you can see the area right there. And it is not the only lease area in California right now. There's another one in California, but we'll just be talking about the Central Coast lease area. What you do need to understand is this is just the beginning in their eyes. What they have slated for the future is, especially in Northern California, over 4,483 square miles of offshore wind project. That's a heck of a lot.
In California?
Yes, indeed. not just along the Pacific. Oregon has their own problems, Washington has their own. That's just slated by our state for production. And what I would like you guys to realize is, people talk about windmills and they're going, oh yeah, well, it's not that big of a deal. Because they drive by the really old wind farms, and those are pretty small, etc. These are huge. To call them a wind farm is really, really, it's great. It's spin, and people go, oh, it's a farm, that's all it is. These are gigantic. They're over 1,000 feet tall. The blades are well over 600 feet. And what they do is they take up these are floating turbines, and they take up an entire square mile of ocean space. So they have slated over 300 wind turbines just in that small area that we showed you on the map. And they will be visible from shore. If somebody tells you that they aren't, sorry, it ain't true. Next. Here is one of the things that I'm constantly pointing out to people is that they could not have placed this technology, this wind farm, in a worse place. It is smack dab in the middle of two major migration patterns, one for marine mammals, and most especially for cetaceans. The other is on the Pacific Flyway, and it will impact avian species, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, both of them. But that is the situation. It also happens to be right in the middle of one of the richest marine ecosystems on Earth, and it is just north, creating basically a downwind situation for and I'm sure many of you have heard about the persistent upwellings, which basically bring out this amazingly rich upwelling of food, which provides food for the entire marine ecosystem in the area. And what it does is it reduces that. We'll talk about that later. Next. So the three companies that have leased this area are Equinor, Golden State Wind, and I've Energy. And I just wanted to show you this because take a look at who owns and are major investors in these companies. The majority of them are not here in the United States. They are offshore. Sorry, I should have said. Anyway, they are offshore, and they the majority of a lot of the wind companies are literally owned by oil companies. The only one that is local here is in the United States, is Avila Energy, and their major investor is Blackstone. Next. Okay, so this is one of our current maps. We have a whole lot of companies in there, and this says oil keeps wind afloat, and subsidies are the driving force. So as you can see, what we were just talking about is oil does keep wind afloat. They invest in it. They are heavily invested in it. But there's also a dynamic where when the wind is not operating, then bottom line is those fossil fuel power plants go into overdrive. They're called peaker plants. And so these oil companies are making money on both sides of the equation. Big deal. Next. Okay, so I'm going to go into the pre-construction aspects of offshore wind. And they are actually have started doing, the very first company that has started doing their permits is Equinor. They are well known to the energy bullies. And they have done some on the East Coast consistently, and they're the ones that are letting out, and they're driving as hard as they can in pushing the process. So they are the first ones to start the pre-construction phase. They have one permit in the bag, and what is going on right now is that there are offshore deep water surveys that are happening. This is a picture of a survey boat, and those survey boats are, upwards of 300 feet. They make an incredible amount of noise just operating, with the thrusters, with the constant props, and just the amount of noise that they make from an anthropogenic standpoint is pretty significant. Next. So the survey vessels I love the names that they give these technologies that they're doing the surveying with. Chirpers and bubblers and twerkers. And this all sounds very benign. It is not. These are some of the technologies that these guys are utilizing on those survey boats. And they are high decibel surveys. These are not things that are going to be, that even you would want to be in the water, because human beings at 160 decibels in the water are basically it can kill you. So these are really high decibel levels. They're very, very damaging. And what's really interesting is none of the permitting agencies so far, one permit has been issued out of probably a total of 30 coming up in the future if they get that far. But the agencies are not demanding monitoring, and they are not requiring that, that there is any kind of verification that they're staying within the decibel levels, they're staying within the frequencies, and that they are not doing damage to the environment. So this is just kind of a fun little, diagram. There's a survey boat, and it shows a couple of the different kinds of scanning. What these guys are doing is, why are they doing the high-resolution geographical surveys? They are surveying the bottom of the ocean. They are looking for anchoring sites. They are looking for sites to be able to run the high-energy cables from the turbines and the substations into shore. And they are scanning the bottom of the ocean with very high decibels, up to 228. So the scans, we've got the little bubbler there, they drag it along, and there's a side scan. Anyway, that's just extra information for you guys. Next. So the impacts of these HRG surveys are significant. And the feds will tell you otherwise. The wind companies will tell you otherwise, and so will our state government, because they really don't want folks to know how much this is going to damage our oceans here locally. And, right here, these guys have been given permission to run at 228 decibels. 160 decibels causes significant damage to marine mammals, marine life. It can basically implode some of their organs. They can have emboli. There can be lots of damage to their pulmonary system, and to their hearing. And everybody's heard the expression, a dead whale is a dead whale. Well, that's true. And so this will damage those very, very sensitive hearing organs that are so important to these animals, not just cetaceans, seals, otters. Anything that lives in the ocean is very dependent upon their hearing. 270 will kill fish. I mean, not 270, 207, and 217 will kill the base of the food chain, larval forms. That's pretty intense, guys. Next. So, I know this is kind of a funny picture, but it is meant for you to think about really a sound. Most of us cannot even begin to imagine what 228 decibels is. And keep in mind, with each one of those decibel levels, every 10, it's not just an increment of 10, it is 8 times 10. So 160 decibels is quite different than 220 decibels by many, many factors. But if you want to stop to think about, and these surveys, those noises, basically what they are doing is it's constant for weeks, days on end, day in, day out, at nighttime as well, every 10 seconds. And these animals are having to withstand that kind of noise that is constant, that is in some instances, like in an estuary or in a semi-closed system, is next to impossible to get away from. So take a look at, right here it says, what is that, 180, which is a rocket launch, and that would render somebody, if you were really close to it, deaf. That's only 180 decibels, you guys. So just stop to consider what these animals are having to endure. Next. So the HRG